Hey there, I'm Lamar, and although I might not look it, I'm a 24-year-old chemistry teacher at a high school just outside of Jacksonville. I know, I'm pretty young to be a teacher, but I've always been a major science nerd and ended up skipping a few grades on my way to college. In fact, it was an amazing teacher, Mr. Singh, who inspired me to be who I am today, which is how I met the love of my life. Before I jump into my story, please hit the subscribe button and the bell notification. This is the best you can do to help the channel. Thanks again. It hasn't been all that long since I started teaching. I joined as a replacement after Thanksgiving when the previous teacher had to move suddenly. I got the impression the students were really surprised the first time they walked into my classroom. And I get it. The mystery of a new teacher, not much older than they are? The boys seemed to adjust fastest. Most didn't really care and were more interested in how much homework I would be giving them. The girls, though, their reaction was just strange. Lots of whispered conversations at the back of the classroom, passing notes behind my back, and giggling. I'll be honest, I've never been the best with dealing with women, and high school girls might as well be from another planet. So I guess you can tell where all this is heading. Major embarrassment. It all started the first week I was teaching, when I had my very first class with the infamous Lowen quads. That's right, identical quadruplet girls. They looked so similar that I had to tell them apart by the color of their hair ties. Laura always wore green hair ties. Gabby always wore pink hair ties. Willow always wore purple hair ties, and Dana always wore blue hair ties. In the teacher's lounge, they were called the Chaos Squad. At 16, they were already practically queens of the school with at least one of them in most of the clubs and school activities. They had a crazy amount of power over the other students. I was told that the principal changed the ketchup supplier to the cafeteria a few months previously and was forced to switch it back within a week when the Lowen sisters organized a school-wide walkout. Of course, I didn't know all this the first time I met them. In fact, I didn't even notice they were different girls at first. I don't like a whole lot of eye contact, and I can be pretty bad at recognizing faces. So when I ran down the register and saw 4 girls with the same last name, I didn't even really think about the fact they might be related. We were halfway through a lab session when the first Lowen sister approached me. Don't ask me to tell you which. At that time, I couldn't tell them apart at all. Mr. Grayson? I don't think I understand this part. I looked up from my desk to find a student standing with the lab instructions in her hand. Oh, sure. Let me look. So what you need to do is make sure you have the burner at a medium flame. Too hot and everything evaporates before the reaction can happen. I explained and smiled, only to find the girls staring at my face. Everything okay? Uh-huh. You're really good at explaining things. She nodded, and I turned back to arranging the next steps in the experiment. A few moments later, I found that same girl standing and waiting. Mr. Grayson, I think I'm doing it wrong. Everything just keeps boiling away, she said. I scratched my head. Maybe she'd been too embarrassed to admit she hadn't understood the first time. No problem. Just set the flame to medium and start it again. You know how to set the flame. I made sure to keep my explanation as simple as possible this time, and she nodded enthusiastically. I was pulling out the next set of beakers when she came back, this time with the instructions again. Something else not clear? I asked, keeping my voice kind. Maybe she needed some extra help. She nodded and held out the paper. It isn't changing color. I looked hard at the paper and back up. Was there a chance she had some additional learning needs I hadn't been told about? So you just need to mix the 2 solutions. Turn your burner until the midline shows and set the beaker in the middle of the flame. Do you need me to help with the setup? She shook her head and smiled. Nope, I'll start again. I thought that would be the last time and started to hand out the new beakers at the ends of the students' lab benches when she came back yet again. Mr. Grayson, it doesn't say which heat to use and I think I'm messing it up, she said. I paused and stared at her. I just told you, medium. Is everything okay? Do you need me to arrange a learning assistant? She looked shocked and started to laugh. Oh, this is hilarious. Did you really not notice? I blinked and backed away. I'm not sure what you mean. We're not even dressed the same. She laughed harder and the rest of the class began to laugh too. I felt myself turning bright and looked around confused. That was when I saw the other three. Yeah, I've been dealing with 4 totally different but identical girls and I didn't notice at all. I stammered out an apology, but the damage was already done. Wow, Mr. Grayson, that's like really bad for our self-esteem, one said. Yeah, another piped up. I feel so hurt, the third said. I guess you better make it up to us with some private tutoring, the last one smiled. I admit, this is where I panicked. I heard stories about unhappy kids getting teachers into awkward positions. I vowed to myself never to provide tutoring or to take money from parents. I could run a remedial class. I'm sure a lot of students need help. I'll put up a sign-up sheet on the school's online platform for anyone who needs it. I said at last, and their faces all went from sweet to happy. That night, I pinned the sign-up sheet for the remedial class on my online notice board, and by the next morning, it was completely full. A lot of kids needed help in chemistry, although it seemed to be almost all girls. Once I made it through my first month at school, things seemed to get easier, though I think the teacher I replaced must have been truly terrible. Every remedial class I set up was full within minutes. It was often the same girls, but occasionally there were some friendly boys that joined in. The kids gave great feedback on their classes. I just hoped it was enough to help them make it through their finals. When the parent-teacher night rolled around, I felt pretty well prepared. My classroom was looking good, and there hadn't been any major tests yet, so I wasn't worried about talking to parents of any struggling kids. The principal liked to keep things formal. Beverages and snacks were laid out to welcome parents, and each teacher had a pre-booked schedule. When I saw the last name Lowen on mine, I was kind of worried. The quads asked me about private tutoring almost every class we had, to the point where I put up a sign on the wall that read, "No to tutoring." Afterwards, one of them told me she thought it was cute. I wasn't too sure why. Mr. Grayson, a stunningly attractive woman walked into my classroom, a friendly smile on her face that just about knocked me out of my chair. I'm Rosa Lowen. My kids are the Quadruplet girls you teach, which you already know. I don't know why I'm telling you that. Oh, don't worry about it. I beckoned her over to sit down and tried not to stare. Rosa Lowen was just beautiful through and through, with warm hazel eyes, honey blonde hair, and a figure that I couldn't believe had carried a set of quads. I tried to tell myself over and over that it's wrong to crush on a student's parents, and that she probably had an equally attractive husband that ran marathons or something. So what can I tell you about the girls? I asked and tried to hide how sweaty my palms had become. Oh, I really just wanted to meet you. The girls just won't stop talking about their great new chemistry teacher at home. You've really inspired them. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen them work so hard at a subject, she said, and I just about got lost in her eyes. I coughed to cover my embarrassment and cleared my throat. That's great to hear. I always think chemistry is the fun part of science, but I know it isn't popular. Well, I guess it just needed the right teacher. Rosa seemed to blush a little, and I wasn't sure why. My only development point for them would be to relax a bit in that case. I know it's weird for a teacher to say it, but they seem very anxious about their grades. I've been getting a lot of requests for tutoring, even though they generally get A's and B's, I said. And they've been coming to all the remedial classes. Is science a big topic at home? Rosa looked surprised and shook her head. No. I mean, obviously it's important for them to study, but I don't believe in pressuring kids too much. and their father hasn't been in the picture since they were babies, so I'm not sure what's going on with them. I swallowed hard at the implication she might be single. Maybe I should do a home visit and talk to them, I suggested and felt instantly guilty. I just wanted to spend more time around Rosa. She seemed like such a wonderful woman. You do that? She sounded pleased. Perfect. I'll make dinner too. I wouldn't want you to go out of your way and not have some kind of reward. Let me give you my number and we can get it arranged. I make great lasagna. And that was how I found myself on a Friday night a few days later, standing on the doorstep of the Lowen house with a fresh-made dessert in my hand.